Welcome back to the Shared Services Advantage series. In our last episode, we talked about the signs, the tipping points that tell you it's time to stand up your shared services center. But once you've made that call, the next challenge is immediate and could be even overwhelming. Where do I start? Because most executives scaling private equity-backed platforms aren't dealing with just one or two issues. They've got dozens of fires burning at the same time. They've got delayed billing, aging AR, phones are not being answered, leadership in the weeds, churn everywhere, and hiring just can't keep up. And most shared services rollout really fail because they start too wide, too fast, and without a clear focus. So today, we're going to walk through 3 simple filters to help you decide where to begin. And as always, joining me as my co-host, Gyner Ozgul, CEO of Fortis Fire. Gyner, it's great to have you here.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Always fun talking to you.
Yes, and today we're going to dive into, and we're going to leverage your firsthand experience building shared service centers and going again on this journey again. So let's maybe dive into that first filter, Gyner, and really the first lens you want to look at is, where is the pain repeatable? Start where the pain is repeatable. If you're seeing the same issue show up across brands or acquisitions, whether it's delayed billing or missed follow-ups or aging AR, that's your signal. It's not a local problem anymore. It's a platform-wide friction, and that's exactly where shared services has leverage. When you can solve something once and apply it everywhere. So, Gyner, how do you spot repeatable pain in your portfolio of companies?
Yeah. So recently here, at Fortis, new role, new responsibility, lot of conversation about, some aging AR, and the fact that kept coming up says to me the repetition of that says to me that that's a real problem, right? That's a problem that essentially needs a solution or a trial of a solution to fix.
Interesting. And kept coming up like in leadership meetings or looking at data.
Monthly P&L reviews at the business unit level, at the business level, at the operator level.
Right.
Check, customer level. And it's like, okay, guys, we have to figure out a solution and really work together to address it.
I love it. So that's the first filter. Where is repeatable pain showing up across the platform? So once you have that, then really the next filter is it, look for high volume, manual, low complexity work. And as you may know, shared services is built for scale, but only when the work itself is scalable. And that means the work, it's high volume transaction, repetitive tasks is the same thing. It's low decision complexity. Anyone with, with simple, skills can accomplish. And frankly, it's easy to document and train. Think invoicing, think dispatch support, think customer service, AP processing. It's not glamorous, but it's where you get fast wins and reduce noise really quickly. So, Gyner, how did you use that lens, the volume complexity, when picking your starting point? Like, let's take AR. How do you decide, okay, this is a good process to really centralize and, lift and shift over to a shared service center?
Like lots of transactions, right? So lead with typically in your AR bucket, the volume of transactions from 0 to 30 and 31 to 60 and 60 to 90 and everything over 90. And frankly, at some point, everything over 365. There's a lot of volume there.
Right.
And a lot of times that process of how do you reach out to a customer? How do you get them the information they need to pay the invoice? That script, using the word script as a placeholder, is very consistent from 0 all the way to your oldest invoice. Right. So, it's checking both of your boxes. High volume, very consistent. Now, what I will say a little bit on the outsource model is there's also an upgrade you get unintentionally in the outsource model, for us at least, in my experience, which is here onshore, because of the churn and the turnover we've talked about in previous episodes, a lot of times you're hiring at a skill level that may actually end up being lower than the skill level that you're hiring at offshore because of the difference in like cultures, right? So that ends up being like an unintended benefit. You're actually hiring somebody that's actually more skilled to help you figure out this problem that you have in the organization. So I don't want to lose sight of that. There's like a real pickup in benefit there.
Right. Because this type of work maybe in in places like the US or Australia or UK, first world countries, maybe not super thought after. And people don't maybe make careers out of it, at least not as as it used to be. And someone offshore is like, yeah, well, I mean, I've been doing this for the last 30 years, and I'm going to retire doing AR or doing AP or doing call center work. No, 100%. That's a great pickup. So, and obviously, you're not going to centralize something strategic or like it's exception heavy out of the gate. That's actually the work that you kind of want to shy away. If there's like a 50 ways of doing AR, and I don't think that's the case. But think maybe FP&A or think sales or whatever that is. If there's strategic or there are it's exception heavy, maybe that's something you want to maybe do down the line. But you want to be looking for stuff that you're doing 500 times a day, and that's right, where you prove the model. And then the third filter that we would want to apply is you want to start where the process is stable. So what do I mean by stable? This is where honestly a lot of operators get burned. They try to transition a process that's still in flux. The ERP is changing. The workflows aren't aligned, or every brand is doing it in a different way. And yes, you can throw buddies at a process like that, and a BPO vendor can staff it. But don't expect major gains out of the gate. Maybe you'll just make your problem cheaper. Yeah. But the real payoff comes when the process is harmonized, consolidated, and already running one way across the business. And that's really where shared services shifts it from working to working better, faster, cheaper, and more reliably. So, Gyner, what's your take on process maturity before handoff? Because this is a conversation that's like, do I transform and then lift and shift, or do I lift and shift and then transform a process?
I would say,
how do you think about that?
You said a couple things there. I would lean on the word mature more than reliable.
Mature more than reliable. What's the nuance there? What's the difference?
The nuance is reliability assumes some level of like, it could be a brand new ERP system that's reliable. There's like nothing wrong with it, but the consistent change of where you're at with that ERP system is going to make this a lot harder, right? Whereas a mature process, or maybe you've did the ERP, your people have been in the role for 6 months, or this process has been in place for 6 months. Now it's like, okay, now is a good time for us to see, and then the outputs aren't changing, right? So it's a mature process and the output that we talked about earlier in the call, right? So your AR is continually kind of in flux. You have a lot of volume there. So those triggers are coming back, and you have a mature process. Now you've kind of checked those boxes, and you say, okay, this is a good opportunity for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when there's variation, the variation is the enemy of performance and productivity, especially if you're transitioning a process that's that's changing, and it makes it very hard to centralize and scale. And there you have it. If you're asking where to start, really use these 3 filters. Start where the pain is repeatable. Look for high volume, low complexity manual work, and start where the process is already stable and ideally harmonized, but at least it's not changing. And it's been like the way it is for the past 6 months. So if you apply these 3 lenses, you'll find the sweet spot, a process that's already working, just not maybe at scale. And shared services becomes really the engine that gets it done faster, better, and cheaper. So, Gyner, thank you as always for sharing the real world experience. But there's one thing, right? Before you decide how to deliver it, whether to centralize, whether to outsource, or whether to go hybrid, there's one thing you need to do. Understand what you're actually working with. What are you starting with? So in the next episode, we'll talk about how to map the current state and define what success looks like, and do the internal work that sets up everything else for success. So until then, make your days great, and I'll be seeing you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.